Before we begin, let's talk about what this film is and is not. It is not medical opinion or medical advice. We do not own, operate, or have any interest in any treatment centers. We absolutely do not condone any illegal activity or treatments. What this film is the story of 6 courageous individuals that served this country in uniform, and in doing so sustained levels of trauma that equaled up to PTSD, so significant that they were at the end of their ropes. This documentary is for everyone out there that feels alone, that feels the darkness. You're not alone. And the very purpose of this project is because your story matters too.
Losing hope, no tomorrow.
It was like, you know, do I fight? Do I scream? Do I run? Do I play dead? Like, what the fuck do I do?
With a broken soul.
Something in me changed. I was a fucking pissed off drunk.
On the window, I'm sorry to myself for all the things I can't control. I know the pain is bittersweet, yeah, when I make.
Was sexually abused, and I suppressed a lot of that for a long time. I suppressed all of that for a long time.
I can't just sit and watch me bleed.
Deal with all the sexual abuse and the combat, the just not trusting anybody. It's just like I definitely spiraled, did a lot of drugs, did a lot of alcohol.
In my sorrows long enough, I'm breaking down all the walls.
Razvan or Xanax or sleep medications, Ambien, take these pharmaceutical drugs, and you'll be good. You'll never what it's not like.
I know the pain is bittersweet, yeah, when I make my mistake.
It was the first time, and since then we've lost 11. And yeah, I've attempted twice. Like, I can't get things right so bad now I can't even take my own life anymore.
I'm done, move on to better days, and so I pray for love, trust, don't give up on anything.
Healing is available for everyone, but you have to choose it. You have to walk in it with big intention to not stop, to not give up.
To myself for all the things I can't control.
6 of this nation's heroes who had been cast away as that's the best we can do.
When I make my mistakes, I need to learn.
I watched the 6 of them heal in front of my eyes.
I can't just sit and watch me bleed.
I watched them let go of their trauma.
All right, Charlie, go ahead.
I guess I'd introduce myself as what's left of the former Dr. Charlie Powell. I've been through transformation in the last year and a half of my life. I joined the military to pay for college, got a scholarship to go to medical school under the Navy, so I was in the Army and then switched over to the Navy. When I graduated from basic training and then combat medic school, that was the same day that Operation Desert Shield became Operation Desert Storm. And a 19-year-old boy learns how to grow up real quick. I really enjoyed my time in the military. I had great experiences. I liked high adrenaline type work, but obviously I knew I could provide better for my family on the outside as a physician, especially double boarded. Wound up in a great place in Dallas, Texas. Went to work for a good man who taught me a lot through the years. Shortly after I got there, I found things starting to change in my life. I wasn't happy with the new job. I was making a lot more money for my family, but I was less happy with more money. Nicer house, nicer car. But I found myself starting to isolate. There was a room upstairs that I would go to watch TV, and downstairs in this house, I never thought it would be in something that big. You know, it just didn't feel comfortable for some reason. That's the beginning of what I started to notice. Happened about a year after I got out. That isolation really wasn't me just being more comfortable in the room. It was the start of the symptoms that started to progress. I didn't realize I was already starting to enter it. I started having sleep paralysis, where I would wake up consciously, could look around, but I couldn't talk, I couldn't move. I've had it occasionally since I was 7, but this time it was different. This time I had this strong sense that something else was in the room with me. Nothing good. I know from my medical background that a lot of times in sleep paralysis, they can get that sensation, high-pitched ringing in the ears. It's okay, I explained it away that way. That was until sometime later, the first time I felt the hands grab my ankles. Then that started happening more frequent. Until last year, there probably wasn't more than a 2-hour span that I was able to sleep. So you can imagine what happens when you don't sleep. You don't sleep, you don't build up the neurochemicals in your system that are there to fill up the gas tank, especially your last 2 hours of sleep, the most important. You build up the neurotransmitters that are responsible for mood, behavior, and how you react to things. And I was a very reactive person by nature, at least I thought I was. And looking back, it really started after the first Gulf War that I was a reactive person. It's a nice way of saying I had a temper. But it would take me hours, not a day, to downregulate from that. And so in my earlier years, I would self-medicate. Alcohol, whatever, a lot of us did. I would seek out care, and originally I was on antidepressants. A lot of them had side effects that either they depersonalized me to where the dose had to be at a dose where, yeah, I had no emotion. It was like I was watching my life through a movie. I had an injury in my back that got me a partial disability because I have permanent nerve damage in my left leg. They eventually put me on gabapentin, which is for nerve pain. Made me dumber than I already am. And that eventually got up to hydrocodone. 15 years I was on hydrocodone and that mix of medications. There had to be other ways to treat this. Look, I looked at spinal injections, I had multiple MRIs done. But you know, I trained in Western medicine, so I knew I was seeing the best people, and I knew the answers they were giving me were the best that they could. I chose to go into a program, a 10-day program that was outside of the US, used a lot of different forms of healing from other cultures that some of it I didn't understand, but I got some really good advice before going. I worked for months preparing myself for this. A lot of it just felt right because of my background in behavioral medicine, psychology, psychiatry before I went to medical school. And I got one piece of advice as I was hanging up the phone with the psychologist before I went in. He goes, just say yes. Okay, what do you mean? just say yes. I remember getting there, and as I walked through the doors of that facility, took a breath, I said, all right, just say yes. I walked in, and for the first time in my life, I was 100% transparent and just let it all come out, everything. And that person that sat there and listened to me looked at me with the most non-judgmental look and compassion. And I had to go through some horrible, ugly things in my life that I'd lived through and been through, or even done in some cases. And with no judgment, this person said, you're gonna be okay.
One day, unexpectedly, I met Charlie, and he told me his story, and it was the first encounter he had with different techniques besides regular medicine. Healing is not always beautiful and easy like most think. Healing is a whole process. It can get dark, it can get scary. Sometimes you spend a whole lifetime not wanting to see what the issue is. So coming face to face with it can be difficult. I'm Natalie Koenig, and I'm a healing expert with over 10 years of experience in this field. So I used to think that healing was only one side, which could be emotional or it could be physical healing, but they're all attached. So when you focus on healing emotionally, all the other areas of your life also heal. Then one day in a conversation during his stay there, he told me his passion, his purpose, his drive, what he had seen during his healing process, and it was so aligned to mine. So we kind of started playing with the idea of, wow, what can we do? How can we create awareness? How can we help others see what you went through and what so many other people go through, but not share and not talk about?
When this all started, I knew that I needed a good, impactful vehicle to open people's minds. That the pure chance that I ran across something so healing for me, that has been so healing for other people. Modality's not really well known to Western medicine. That my story alone wouldn't be enough, that I wanted to tell other stories. At first, when the opportunity came up with Ryan, I remember I had already told him I would cover his treatment because I saw how bad he was hurting. And you gotta pay it forward sometimes in life. And then from that little catalyst, the spark grew into a flame that's now turned into a bonfire of impact.
PTSD is a way of the mind and body trying to deal with the experience they went through. It's a way of making sense of pain. Sometimes we think that trauma is an event or something that externally happened to us, all the things that we understand that are potentially traumatic. And yes, maybe they are, but the truth is that trauma is something that happens inside of us as a result of what happened to us. That's like a Gabor Mate's definition. And there's another definition from Peter Levine, one of the trauma experts in the world, that says trauma is too much, too fast, too soon, and not enough. The difference between trauma and PTSD is that the length of the experience and the symptoms is wider, it's long-lasting.
What we're seeing is it's not isolated post-traumatic stress or isolated TBI, is concurrent and on top of each other. And then you also have the childhood trauma, which predisposes a person to have adult PTSD. As you know, trauma underlies a lot of addiction. So by treating the trauma, people were able to not use, because often or always people are just trying to self-medicate. Right. Nobody starts life wanting to be a heroin addict. Not at all. So they fall into it, and many times it's because a doctor prescribed opioids for some injury, and suddenly they feel at ease, they feel right in their skin, they're not struggling anymore. And that's when they find out that, that this is treating their depression or their anxiety.
When you're stuck, when you're reacting in trauma, those are also the people you surround yourself by. And it just makes the trauma even worse until you get so deep in this hole, and it's all reinforcing that it's almost so hard to find your way out.
The veterans have almost an adversarial relationship with a therapist while they're in the military, because it is the one person that can pull them off an operation. So yeah, they don't want to admit they have an issue, because then they might be pulled away from their unit, they might be denied a promotion, and then when they get out, they often don't feel that they were exposed to the level of trauma that other people were exposed to. But it's not just that you're in combat and that's when you have the PTSD. Often being on a rear base and having this helplessness of having like mortars shot at you can cause more PTSD than having an operator kicking down doors and being shot at, because they have agency. Whereas a person in the rear is just kind of receiving and not being able to control when the next mortar round is going to fall. Right. So that is one of the reasons I think that a lot of people have PTSD and they don't feel that they were in combat or that they suffered as much as other people. And then there's a survivor's guilt as well, where they might feel that that they survived and why others didn't, and that they might be taking away resources from somebody that has it worse than they have it.
This is going down to the core of who we are, down to teaching them core values, core aspirations, becoming core values, priorities, how to grow in their life, how to grow in their relationships. Give them some tools they didn't have coming into this that they can use afterwards. Now, it's interesting. As I've said before, plant-based medicine is not needed for everyone. And if I was to give you my explanation of where it's necessary, it's when some of the traumas are just so walled off that they can't even see them. They're behind concrete, they're behind multiple feet of concrete per se, but even all that concrete can't keep out the radioactive nature of the trauma it's containing, and it tends to leak through. The plant-based medicine in these cases allow them, in a sense, to get through that, to identify and to deal with those traumas with new tools and give them the ability to process them that they didn't have when they originally happened. The whole process of plant medicine in their 6 cases also allow for a certain neuroplasticity. It's so interesting when you look at psychedelic medications and the fact that 2 of them, and ibogaine specifically, have been shown to cause that neuroplasticity, new brain tissue growth, reducing brain age on functional MRIs. It's unheard of. It just makes you wonder where else in medicine that technology could go. But in the case of military individuals, it's very common to have traumatic brain injury. Traumatic brain injury, especially of the amygdala, a section of the brain, small area of the brain that basically sits inside of a little bone capsule. And those injuries to that amygdala and a head injury cause even more difficult to treat PTSD. So not only are they exposed to a lot at a younger age than their brains are ready for, but they likely have a significant area of their brain that may have had damage that doesn't allow them the proper methods and paths of healing. So that added complication really sets them up for plant-based medicine in their case to be a bigger success.
Programs like this really aren't that common in the United States. And so Charlie and Natalie putting this kind of program together was very unique, and it really kind of was exciting to me because it was something that was going to be different than what just typical pharmaceutical type medicine would be. So I was anxious to learn about it. I was anxious to see it in action, and actually anxious to maybe incorporate it in my world afterwards if that was the case.
I believe meditation is the main tool to maintain the benefits of a psychedelic journey. But psychotherapy is critically important. Having the right preparation and the right integration is about 70% of the healing. It's not the experience itself, but what you do with the experience. And if you have these transformational journeys, these experiences that show you a different way of being, but you don't integrate it and you don't incorporate it into your everyday life, it's a missed opportunity.
The VA estimates over 600,000 veterans that have PTSD. By their own statistics, they're not doing shit to really help that, maybe a small amount. And that's a grossly underestimated number of the amount of people that are out there that actually have PTSD or are just suffering in general, right? Yeah. The VA is notorious for not giving great statistics.
The current VA's approach to PTSD is equivalent to putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, and I believe that is how you get 22 a day and counting.
This is not for everybody, but everybody should have the right to access something that is effective.
Ryan was very involved in baseball, football, basketball, all seasons, all year. But Ryan played, sports all of his life. He was very good. As he got older, he was very, very good in baseball. He played some in college, but he said, it's really just not a big deal anymore. It's not my life. And then ultimately, joining the Army was what he wanted to do. That's what Ryan always looked like. Smile. Hey guys, let's go do this. Let's go do that. Happy-go-lucky, goofy, just, and that's why he had made so many friends in the Army that first day in basic training. And then this was before he went to Afghanistan. And I made the comment to him. I said, boy, it's a difference in that picture. He goes, oh yeah. He goes, I didn't know what to expect. I thought it'd be just, nothing to it. And then I saw what war was really like. And he goes, this is when I was going back, and they had told us they expected high casualties. We're going into an area to take it back over because they've lost control of it, and you guys are going to be expected to do this and that. And he goes, there was no doubt what I was getting into. As he was here, we started noticing a little bit of differences. But not near as much like when he came home from Afghanistan. Iraq was a lot different. Heather's made the comment that my brother never came home.
I put my body through so much trauma every day just so it would be ready for more trauma the next time. And I realized, I was like, wow, that was why I was able to do all the things I did. It's because I had such a traumatic life. It was like Charlie asked me, what are my 3 major traumas? And I've realized here lately, probably one of the least traumatic periods in my life was the military, other than deployment. I thrived, I loved it. That's where my injuries came from, was running with bomb dogs through Afghanistan. Too close to too many big blasts. And basically CTI, TBI, the same thing, but it happened over 3 times instead of years of repetitive concussion. My dog's name was Satan, and nobody told him that was my dog, so I'm talking about Satan the whole time, so they treated me like a psych patient and put me on every fucking psych med you could think of, in addition to anti-seizure meds and pain med. And that was the cocktail I lived on for multiple years. And like I said, I think the medicine did more damage than any trauma I've ever been through. Being so over-medicated with that cocktail of medications, like when you look at the scans of my brain, it's not something you want to see if you know what those colors look like on there. And it's caused a lot of problems. And a lot of the baggage I carry is the problems that my problems have caused for others. And I was pissed when I got medevaced and had to get out. I was going to live that life forever.
So Ryan was injured, medevaced out. We didn't know exactly what the extent was. I managed to get the phone number to the hospital, and I called him. And the person that answered the phone was not my brother. He was not deliberate, but cruel and mean, and said some really ugly, like my brother would never speak to me like that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Basically told me don't ever call him again.
The biggest problem, Ryan never got to decompress. He never got to be with his buddies after combat like he did in Iraq before they came home to the States. And then when they came home from the States, I think for either 2 weeks or 30 days, they weren't allowed to leave the base. And I said, why is that? He'd be like, well, they don't want us to kill everybody. We're just not ready to deal with the civilians. Well, when he came home, he just got dumped out. Deal with this.
For some reason, for the first time in maybe a couple of months, I picked my phone up in the middle of the night. It opens right up. It's Ryan Henderson, and he is sobbing. And his words, I'll paraphrase, were, I don't know what to do. And it was either I do this video or that gun might go in my mouth again.
I believe you said, I'm not sure who's going to watch this video, but I'm not sure who to turn to on this.
I did, and I also said, you know, if it helps one person not get to where I was, then I don't mind if people want to judge me off of it. And that's the one attitude that stayed consistent throughout my recovery. The last decade of my life is I'll sacrifice myself if it helps one other.
Right.
This is the fight. I didn't want to come home. I never wanted to get out of the Army. I wanted to stay, either die on the battlefield or retire.
And that's something they don't prepare you for when they're exiting you in their 2-week course, their TAPS course, or whatever they call it for their branch. They don't prepare you for the world you're going into. I call it the unsung trauma, the final trauma of leaving the military.
Starting December 30th of 2010 was the first time. 2009, I apologize. Was the first time, and since then we've lost 11. And yeah, I've attempted twice, and for a long time I joked, I was like, I can't get things right so bad now I can't even take my own life anymore.
Courtney was a good kid, but she was very, very strong-willed.
She never backed down. She never, gave up and cowered or any of that. She's always been a fighter that she would fight through.
She was the wild child.
Mm-hmm.
She was good kid, super good kid.
That was hard because she came home and said, "Guess what I did?" And she's like, "I signed up for the military," and I just cried. And I'm like, "Why? What are you doing?" I'm like, I was terrified for her, obviously, but it was probably one of the best and worst things that for her.
I grew up with my dad working on trucks and in the shop and everything like that, so mechanicking was something that I knew something about. Even if I didn't think that I did. So helicopter mechanic it was. I had this mindset that everybody was good, regardless of how they talked, what they looked like, what they dressed like. That's how I went through basic and AIT, and then when I got stationed into Korea, same thing. There was a group of us that were supposed to go to Seoul. I remember sitting on the second floor of a bar and go to stand up to go to the bathroom, and I could not figure out how to walk. I was coherent, like I could tell you what was going on, but like my body just wasn't reacting to it. There was a hotel right around the corner. He got the hotel. He said that he got me a room, he got him a room, and I was like, okay, good. He walks out. I changed my clothes and I just lay down, and I'm like, oh, I'm so fucking over this, like just laying down. And I wake up to, I'm face down and he is on top of me. It's a split second, and it feels like such a long time that you're sitting there thinking about this, like, what do I do? Do I fight? Do I scream? Do I run? Do I play dead? I was like, I can't fight. If I couldn't walk, I don't even know how many hours ago, not to mention he's 2 or 3 times my size. It's like, I can't do anything. There's nothing I can do. And I laid there, and I held my breath. I didn't move, and I just laid there, and I just waited for it to be over. And when it was, he got up, he walked out, he left the room, and I stood up. My goal was to grab my shit and to run. I stood up and I couldn't stand. The next morning he had came in to get me to go, and I pretended like nothing was wrong. We go back to base, back to Camp Humphreys, where 2 or 3 people had convinced me to get a rape kit. So I did, and I went unreported. After a month, I did end up going reported. Everybody found out. I got pushed out. I never did really get to go back and do what I went there to do. They tossed me around, and I mean, they just treated me like absolute shit.
Not being able to go and help her. And knowing that they were doing nothing. They were doing nothing for all that time. There was others besides Courtney with him.
I remember the phone call. She was almost ready to give up. She's like, Mom, I can't do this. I can't fight. I can't keep doing this. It's so hard. It's just, it was that defeated. I've never heard her defeated before.
It's just hard to see her.
It's hard to see your kids suffer and you can't protect them and you can't fix it.
Korea, when I reported it, then there was like 6 or 7 other women who came forward, not with him, but with other situations. It just became a whole big thing. People were unhappy with everything that was going on. The shit that they said to me, that they did to me. I got called a whore for being pregnant and not married. Then they wanted to know who the father was, and I refused to tell them because he was also coming to the unit. And I'm like, it's none of your fucking business. I ended up using my pregnancy to get out, and that was an easy choice, but it was hard personally. I wouldn't go back and change that decision at all. But it was hard because this was what I wanted. And they stole it from me.
When she did come home, she was still broken, but still fighting.
She was like, I think 3 or 4 years older than me. She would like tie herself to the bed and make me perform sexual acts on her. And so that continued on for a long time, and I just really felt like I couldn't talk to my mom or dad because of how reactive my situation at home was. And so I just carried that for a long time. And then another kind of thing happened where me and the neighborhood boys, one neighborhood boy found some porn, so we all got introduced to that at a young age, probably 6 to 7 years old now. Didn't like my body and felt very uncomfortable in my skin and just wanted to fit in and feel loved, and I would perform sexual acts on them. So then I felt really shameful about that and guilty. I started drinking when I was 12 years old. That was my first beer, and it has always been in excess. Just drink as much as you can to get fucked up, blacked out, puking, drunk. That's just how I drink and how it started.
You know, something that started while we were dating was the drinking. And that was just kind of like the age we were at, partying and whatnot. But he would get like pretty drunk. And then like when he was in school in Texas, you know, like I would get worried about him. Like that kind of continued, kind of being irresponsible with alcohol. For his first deployment, we were at a friend's house and we were partying, hanging out, and he drank a whole bottle of rum and then was sick, and I was ready to go home. Like, I wasn't about that. And I got in my friend's car, she was gonna drive me home, and he just ran out and just was banging on the window so loud, like, "You're leaving me, you hate me." And it was really scary because I hadn't ever seen that before. Really loud and aggressive and scary. So that was kind of the first inkling that like something's going on here. There's another side. There's another side to him.
And it continued on to, when I had the decision to either go to college or join the military.
And then he deployed, and then he came back, and like those kind of incidents were more frequent, and he would drink a lot and then break down and share stories from war and cry and cry and cry.
Everything was different for sure. When I remember the drive home and looking at the trees on Camp Lejeune and just thinking, like, where the fuck am I? You know, like this, it just didn't feel the same. And I'd already drank a lot prior to this, but it really, something in me changed. Now I wasn't so much like a happy drunk. I was a fucking pissed off drunk. Like, fighting was different beforehand. It was just for fun, and now it's like I'm breaking shit. I'm punching holes in walls. I'm angry.
He was working in like a Navy clinic, and he hated it. He told them, "Do not put me in Building 15." And they did. And he was miserable. It was Thanksgiving, and our daughter was around a year old, probably, maybe a little younger. And we split up, guys and girls. Guys were cooking the turkey at our house, and I was at my friend's house helping with everything else.
And I go to get the turkey, fucking taking a couple chugs off Jack while I'm there, and I'm walking it back, and I fucking spilled the turkey all over the road and shit. And
he showed up to Thanksgiving plastered.
I get over to their house, and my wife's just like, what the fuck?
I was mad. And he was like, fine, like, I'm not wanted here, I'll go home. So he went home.
I just felt so low, like just like such a piece of shit. And I went back and I grabbed my Glock, I put it in my mouth, and then I took the slack out of the trigger. Right when I did that, hit the wall of the trigger, my wife opened the door.
And he is sitting on the couch with a gun in his hand.
So she's like, what the fuck are you doing?
You're in so much pain that that's your only option.
She knew that I was thinking about blowing my brains out.
Like, how could you do that to me and your daughter?
And my mother lost my father. She was pregnant, me, 3 months pregnant. He was the world to her, and she had 2 other children, 2 sisters that I have. So I kind of came into the world in a traumatic event, so to speak. So my family upbringing was definitely a lot of sadness, a lot of uncertainty, financial and just spiritually, I guess. So, my mother was an incredibly hard worker. She did some phenomenal things. It's like 3 kids, fed, she worked full time, raised us, and she really did a wonderful job. I didn't have really a male role model to look up to. I had an uncle and a grandfather, but fleeting sort of interactions with them. So I think a lot of what I did growing up was try to be there for my mother as much as possible. So instead of being the baby in the family, I quickly became, or was required to become, the man of the house. And so most of my identity I built upon that. Fixed things, took care of things, all the loose ends around the house, even at a very young age. But I was always more comfortable by myself and isolated. I was always something I gravitated towards. And eventually I still wasn't sure what my role as a man in the world was. So I took it upon myself to join the Marines, and they'll make a man of you. So the slogan goes. I deployed in 2003 to Iraq. I eventually got hired for the New York City Fire Department. That was my dream job. I always wanted to do that. I was always waiting for that call. I went and got onto that job, and then I still had this feeling like I didn't prove myself enough. So I signed up for another deployment. I almost feel like I got a sense of dependency on doing this, on proving myself, on maybe fulfilling like whatever I felt like a man should be. This is how I prove it. So I kept going overseas again. And throughout the last, I don't know how many years, I've gone back 4 times between Iraq and Afghanistan, and never achieved a level of satisfaction that made me feel fulfilled. I'm very inclined to achieve risk on my deployments as well. So no matter what was going on, I would always make myself the person in the gun turret, even when I was at a rank when I shouldn't be in a gun turret. You know, that's usually the lower ranking guys do that stuff. I just enjoyed risk. I enjoyed danger. I enjoyed anything where life and death was in the balance. And I thrived there the best. And it took me a long time to even have a conversation about anyone with and explain what was happening. And it even came to a point where I used to drive the truck and, you know, driving a 60,000 pound fire truck down the streets of Brooklyn at 3 o'clock in the morning after being in this state where I can't even control my senses. And I would wear a heart monitor and it would say my heart rate was 150 when I woke up. And then I would go in the fire and my heart rate was 110. So it's just incredible how that psychological effect versus when I had my faculties and I was focused on what I'm doing was so, you know, diametrically opposed to one another. So, you know, it took me a long time to come to the realization that maybe I can't work anymore. So all these things that I was given were making me even worse because they're just, you know, introducing toxins into the body that your mind doesn't do anything but become dependent on taking lorazepam or Xanax or sleep medications, Ambien, things to just sort of, you know, sleep really good tonight because you're working tomorrow night. So basically take these pharmaceutical drugs and you'll be good. But inevitably it's not like that. Or I would just stay up the entire night. And then, you know, you're working at 24 and then break for a little bit, another 24. You just get wiped out after. I was promoted to lieutenant in 6.5 years ago. And, you know, now I'm in a leadership role. So now I have to be in charge of this firehouse. And when we go on runs, I go in the fire with them and I have to, you know, be their commander and what we're doing and what our tactics are. And their lives are in my hands. And I'm at a point where I can't function. I can't talk on the radio. I can't get a word out. My voice is quivering because I'm at, you know, 160 beats per minute. Doing breathing exercises on the fire truck. And all these things really came to a point where I was going to quit my job. I was going to leave, retire. I had 20 years now. At the time, I didn't. So I would have been leaving the job prematurely without a full pension, without putting in my time. But that experience really saved me from losing my career and some, you know, leaving something that's part of my identity.
Growing up, I remember he gave me 2 bullets, sent me out in the Mojave Desert by myself at night. It was like, don't come back until you kill something. I remember seeing a jackrabbit and then like I didn't want to take its life. Definitely didn't want to eat a jackrabbit. I didn't want to take its life, but I didn't want to spend the night out in the desert. So I shot once, I missed, and shot twice, and I hit it. And that's the only way I could come back in. And it's just like, you know, it was a terrible childhood, so by the time I could escape, like, the military made sense. So I signed up for the most risky thing that females could do at that time, and that was combat MP.
remember vividly going to school with a pair of shoes that had the whole sole split for a long time. I mean, because they just didn't have money to get me new ones. I had a younger sister who was born with some complications developmentally, and that took up a lot of my parents' time and energy. A lot of sibling rivalry, so there was always somebody yelling at some time. Like there was just chaos, complete. Like if you had to tell me one word to summarize like my upbringing, it was chaos. So with that, I grew up, and as soon as I was old enough, I bolted out of there. I couldn't do it anymore. Just the constant negativity and just drained me. I thought to myself through this whole course of my adulthood, how can I be as different as possible from my family? And being a first responder gave me solutions to a lot of the things that I was seeking. I thrived in a chaos environment. I wanted more chaos. Yeah, I wanted to help people. I wanted to give back to my community. I wanted to do all the good answers that you want everybody to say. Those were all true. But I also wanted to chase that chaos, and I wanted to be different from my family. So I went to the police academy. I wore the badge with honor for several years. I still do. January 6, 2020, I was involved in a critical incident where a emotionally disturbed person decided that he wanted to kill a cop that day, and he admitted that to me. He said that he set out to kill a cop that night. I was driving down the highway, middle of the night, nothing going on. I look in my mirror and I see a car tearing down the middle lane, and I'm on this highway is 3 lanes, but it really should be 2. It's very narrow. And I glance over, and because I noticed that this car didn't pass me, it stayed parallel to me for an abnormal amount of time, right? When you're passing a car, you kind of just pass it. This guy was right there. I glance, because like I said, this road is super narrow. So I glance over and I look back at the road. And this will be important later, because he said that he tried to kill me because I looked away from him. I glance over again, and all I see is this, where he tried to ram me with his car. You know, when a car's behind you, you can see the road between your car and theirs. You can see the front of the car, the hood, the windshield, whatever, depending on how close they are. I couldn't see like any part of this car, like it was on me. So I hit the gas because I can't hit the brakes. For some reason, my head goes to protecting the car from a car accident instead of like, police cars are crashed all the time. Like, so I should have just hit the brakes and dealt with the accident and ended the whole incident. But I hit the gas, and I didn't know what to do with being chased. You know, like they train us in the police academy to chase. We're not taught what to do when we're being chased, because that doesn't happen. I'm calling everything out. I have my firearm in my hand. I'm looking in my mirrors, because all I could think about was a few years prior, a Philadelphia police officer was ambushed by someone wearing similar garb who opened fire into his police car. And I just thought, immediately I thought that this was what was going to happen to me. Like, I was like, here it is. This is it. Like, I'm ready for him to come running up and kill me. So I'm sitting there, I'm at the light, I don't know what to do. I have civilians around, I'm thinking about, okay, what's my backdrop if I have to get into a shooting? Nobody trains you for this situation, right? So the light changes, I'm thinking, okay, there's a gas station up here, I'm gonna get behind, there's like dumpsters and stuff available if I'm about to get shot at. So he peels off, keeps going down the highway. Well, now the roles have reversed. Now I'm the cat and he's the mouse, so I gotta go chase after him. So I catch up to him, I'm calling it out. There's Arabic lettering written across the windows of the car. I give all these details that I have. I get the tag and give that to communications. Finally, I'm 3 towns away. I don't even know what town I'm in because I'm watching him. He tries to ram me again. He somehow got next to me. And then after that second time, he cuts across all 3 lanes and tries to go down what I think he thought was a side street. And it ended up being a school bus yard. And I very vividly remember seeing all the school buses parked there and the car in the middle, and I'm given commands doing what's called a felony car stop, where I have them at gunpoint and I'm given commands to have them show me your hands, show me your hands, show me your hands. And I just remember like later on listening to the video of everything once I was ready to hear that, and the thing that I kept saying was, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like I couldn't wrap my head around what was happening to me.
If you were an artist as a kid and you were painting a picture of just an outside backdrop, what color would the sky be?
Blue.
Blue?
Be like a turquoise, seafoam green kind of color. Yeah. Think like a sunset, maybe some orange in there, but yeah.
Oh, blue for sure.
Coming back from the military, and before you kind of started on your journey of healing, what color would the sky been in that picture?
Probably a little grayer.
Definitely overcast.
Black scribbly pen, just angry, an angry sky.
I'd have to go back to when I hiked the Appalachian Trail. It's called a green tunnel. It's because you don't see the sky for 6 months. So my darkest days, that sky would have been green.
What did it look like at its worst?
Fucking black.
Just like me, they were out of options. Several of them had even had attempts on their own life. But I'm gonna be honest, I was in the same place at one point. I remember it very well. You know, when it's so dark and so lonely because you swam so deep, you don't even see sunlight anymore. You don't know which way to swim to get out. You wake up tired and defeated, you go to bed tired and defeated. It's that moment when every penny of hope has been spent. You start asking a different question. I found my path out, not through 26 years of being a multi-boarded physician, but through an unconventional means. It saved my life. Now we're going to put that same path before them, and we're going to hope for the same results. It's important to understand that what these 6 are about to go through is specific for them. Not everything is specific, and I want to be very clear. Not everybody needs plant-based medicine, in my opinion. In fact, their case is so severe it did require it, but the stages of healing that we built into every day of this treatment program they're about to go through, that's where the important stuff is. In fact, even in their case, the medicine is only about 20% of the process. The rest of it is everything else that everybody can engage with on their own, with some of these activities that we have plugged into this to find their own healing, whether it be trauma-induced depression, anxiety, insomnia, or actually PTSD even in milder cases.
I almost didn't even show up to begin with. I had it planned that I was just going to get dropped off at the airport, walk out into the parking lot and call an Uber and spend the week fucking somewhere and nobody'd know the difference. And Charlie had a wonderful, wonderful man who I cannot speak enough praise about named Barney Fritz. And Big Barney was there to get me on the plane. And I rode the plane with Barney. And that was the first person I met from the cast and crew. And Barney and I did not shut up for 2 hours and 45 minutes. And I was like, this isn't so bad, you know? Then I walk in and I meet my first cast member. And it had to be my damn sister, Courtney. And it was almost like we were destined to just cause chaos in this world from now on.
Meeting everybody in Tulum was not at all similar to being in the military. I knew I was in a safe place when I got to Tulum. Going to basic, the only thing that was going through my mind was, the fuck did you just do? How do I get out of this?
Day one, on your feet. Here we go. Heroes, welcome.
This has been a long time coming, but this program has been in development for quite some time.
Might seem a bit extreme that I'm treating this like war or battle. But again, we're going in against an unknown enemy. We're going in against demons, per se, that have robbed these people of their lives. That's a powerful adversary, one that none of them had ever battled before. We divided our days into different steps of healing with a certain order that was very specifically designed for veterans, first responders, people with PTSD. And it all starts with gratitude.
The gift of giving yourself an opportunity. The gift of having arranged everything back at home to be able to spend 10 days here. Out of over 8 billion people around the world, it is you that is laying next to each other.
Gratitude and introduction to some new forms of healing and neuroregulation that they've probably never been exposed to before. We were faced with the fact that they'd probably have the same skepticism I did when I walked in for my treatment.
So with your hands where they are, and with a smile on your face, in silence inside of yourself, I want you to say, I am grateful for today. Because no matter what your journey was like, no matter how many tears you dropped, no matter how many times you lost someone you love, no matter how many times your life was so difficult you did not know if you were gonna make it one more day, you are here. And that was exactly the journey you had to go through to be exactly where you are today. Thank every single person that might left your life, every single person that hurt you, every single one that brought you down. Because no matter how horrible or how tough it might have been, you're alive. Today, you are grateful for life. Thank you so much.
Gratitude's all about focusing on what is in the present to be grateful for. It's not about things in the past that we've lost, and not about things in the future that we don't have yet. It's about focusing on what's right here and there. So in Gratitude Circle, everybody gets around and they talk about things that they're grateful for at that moment. People will typically say their family, their job, their house, their cars. No wrong answers. But a real key component of this is to feel the gratitude. Now, usually to elicit that, I'll tell people, look, think of a moment in your life where you were just extremely grateful about something. I'm talking about that toy you wanted for Christmas or your birthday that you're finally opening it up and you're like, that feeling of gratitude. And it doesn't have to be a gift. It could be any of the billions of moments in your life that something great happened to you. I want you to remember that feeling as you're talking about the things you're grateful for right now. So here we end up day one. Day two, they're really going to have some trust in us because they may not quite understand what's coming at them.
We were told going into this experience that there was going to be some things that were going to seem weird. There was going to be things that we might be apprehensive about, and just say yes. To just say yes. I mean, you don't know if you like it unless you do it twice, right? Like, I walked into this experience with, like, I have nothing to lose. So, I mean, what's the worst that can really happen? So I knew that Lynn had a pole dancing studio, and she did pole sport. So when they brought in the pole dancing, I so badly did not want to say yes to this.
I'm supposed to be this badass paratrooper, yada, 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 multiple deployments, yeah, people are like, oh, you're one of the baddest motherfuckers I've ever met, right? But I know the real me, and I was like, I'm a goofball too. And NCOs lead from the front. So I was like, I'll go first. Well, Dr. Charlie has this mirror disco ball, and I was like, hey man, give me that helmet to wear. I was like, if I'm gonna do it, bro, we're gonna do it.
It was really funny. People coming out of their shells, and you would think it'd be the women coming out of their shells, and it was the boys.
What happened at the end of pole sport, these individuals came together and started laughing and joking and picking on each other a little bit. They started to form the family, the squad. We were not meant to be alone. Connections with other humans are essential in our growth process and our healing process. But these 6 showed up not knowing each other, anything about each other, and we had to get them to come together quickly. Outside of that, day 2 also gets into something interesting called breath work, which holotropic breath work and holoscopic breath work are both utilized in different facilities to help incite almost a psychedelic-like response that is mind-boggling.
Holoscopic breathwork is a therapeutic modality that through breath we can access non-ordinary states of consciousness or expanded states of consciousness. There's a lot of research on that, on the healing potential of the expanded states of consciousness. It's a modality that uses fast rhythmic breathing patterns that can induce, for what we understand, can induce these expanded states in which we can explore unconscious materials and trapped emotions to be released.
Is that okay? Well, I got in. So, I think that the most important part of it is that you keep doing the circular breathing, okay? Maybe you can go faster, like, but the speed is not our goal, okay? It's better to go deeper and faster.
Focus on your body. How does it feel? Let's breathe in and out. Relax. We're gonna accelerate our breathing. We're gonna accelerate our breath, going deeper with every inhale and exhale.
When they are laying down, we ask them to start breathing through some music. There's always music in this session because the music is going to guide the pace of the breath.
In and out, with no space in between the inhale, the exhale.
Going into the breath work, I really did think that it was going to be something that was just going to be calming, maybe another form of breathing. But it was not calming for me. I think the best way for me to describe it was aggressive. I don't really even know how to explain that. It was so out of body. And it was like, it's just your breathing. And I didn't have control of my body, and my mind took over.
Day 3. This is going to be a tough one because it's a very important stage of healing, and that's forgiveness. Not just about forgiving what other people have done to us and letting go of it and any negative relationship to it, but also forgiving ourselves. Because in so many cases, in one way or another, we have done some things to ourselves, whether it be self-medication or a number of different things, or what we've done to other people that we need to forgive ourselves for. Now, I view forgiveness, if you're going to take the advanced class, it's a tough one. Have gratitude towards those you have to give forgiveness to as well. If you can have gratitude towards what you would view as a negative event in your life, you can finally accept it was part of what got you where you are right now. And what they're going to learn is it's exactly where they're supposed to be.
Hold it there. Feel how your body grows. I want you all to close your eyes and bring your eyes inwards. I want you to look inside of your body in this moment. How do you feel? How do you look?
And then we were told we were going to ice plunge. There is a storm. It is raining. It is blowing. It is fucking cold. And get into an ice bath. It'll be fine.
So my kryptonite is cold water. I was a desert warrior, man. I chased dudes all around the mountains, in desert. And it's like,
There was a whole speech about how it's good for you and mind controlling body.
it's too damn cold. Really? It's bullshit is what it is.
I didn't want to show any weakness, and so I was gonna do it.
I had to go first. It was like, oh, I'll go first. I'll get this over with. And so I got in, and I'm glad I went first because I'd have felt like such a failure. I kneeled down on my knees, and she's like, nah, that ain't gonna work. She's like, get off your knees. And I'm like, so I sit down in it, and I keep going down, and I finally get down to my neck, and I got my hands out of the water. And she's like, put your hands in. And I was like, I can't do it. I was like, I can't do it. I said, I can sit, I can be here. I said, but I can't. And at first I was like, man, why can't I just put my hands in? The ice bath was teaching me that it was okay to let somebody help me. To let somebody walk the path, to hold my fucking hand like a child as I'm learning how to live life. That's why I couldn't let go of her hands. My eloquence or lack of there doesn't allow me to have a better word for it, but it was weird, man, in a beautiful way. That was the moment when I was like, And then you start realizing, kind of like those of us who have gone through the military, you realize that the model of basic training is they're breaking you down and building you back up, and there's a reason to the process. Even the jokes that they make to you, the horrible things they say to you, all that, them throwing your stuff out of the lockers and all this, it all has a reason. And the ones who thrive in that environment are the ones who can see, it's a game. I'm going to win the game.
When you look at the medical benefits of ice baths, there's a lot that goes on in the body. Act of going into the ice water, it actually causes a lot of vasoconstriction of your peripheral arteries and vessels, and that causes the blood to shunt inward towards your vital organs. In other words, it's putting you almost in a life or death state, and during that event, that activation of the sympathetic nervous system and then control of your mind over it is a powerful, powerful tool. Because think about it. That same system has been activating over and over and over again every time they trigger from an emotional or some kind of memory trigger that brings up their PTSD. So getting them in that situation and teaching them, you're fine, you're okay, and how to have that control over it, they finally learn that they have control over their body. Their body does not have control over them.
Seda and Grayson are gonna come pick one by one individually for the next activity, which is the sauna. So if they tap your shoulder, that means it's your turn. You gently stop whatever activity we're doing, and you will walk towards the fire with them. Okay? Keep your body moving.
When we went around and interviewed the families prior to coming into this treatment, we got each of them to send a little message to their loved one as they went into this. Not everybody had a message, but those that did, it touched them deeply because it came at them at a very important time where they're nervous, they don't know what's about to come at them with the medicine, and this was the first night of them being exposed to the medicine. So tonight, they're going into this prepared, both mentally and physically.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Lynn. We just wanted to give you a quick shout out and support for this journey you're about to go on and how important it is.
You don't always have to be strong. You don't always have to put on a brave face. You can be vulnerable.
I just wanted to tell you that I am so proud of you that you are finally taking the time to do something for yourself and not for others.
I am so happy that you have this opportunity for healing. You have sacrificed so much for your family, for me and the kids, and for your country.
So don't ever feel like you can't call me when you need somebody to talk to you. I'll be there. I'm your father. I'm your dad. So I'm just waiting and hoping that, you get what you need and this helps you come back all the way. I love you, buddy.
As a group, we decided not to film or record anything to do with their processes out of respect for the medicine and for them. What each individual is about to go through is variable. What they experience, how they experience it. There's a saying in the space that the medicine gives you what you need. And we in no way want to invade their privacy or affect those outcomes. Day 4, rest day. What they need now is to rest and process what they just went through. I likened it to getting terabytes of data dumped into your brain and it's all trying to come through a processor at one time. They need some time to do that. So the team actually steps in for the latter part of that day and starts working with them and helping them integrate both from understanding the things they may have seen to reality testing and stabilization of their nervous system, of what they've just been through.
Good point. So yes, I'll let them choose.
All right, so we're going to let you guys choose. We're going to get through 6 out of the 10. So I'd like to start over here. What would you like to do?
Day 5, experience life. When you suffer from mental health issues, especially PTSD, depression, and whatnot, you tend not to experience so many things in life. Either you're afraid of it, you don't have the energy to do it, or you're just so consumed with everything around you, you don't take part in some of the greatest things. It's also an important part of the process to engage in nature, and we find a lot of power and healing within nature. So for day 5, we take our group to the cenotes.
The cenotes are a beautiful and very special place for sure. And there's the history and the energy that's felt there is very profound. Especially when you have you're very open after a psychedelic experience to different energy and your own emotions and the energy of other people and stuff like that. So it was definitely a very grounding experience, I would say.
There's a special vibe in that area. So that was the intention behind it, to connect that. We were in what we perceive and feel is healing grounds.
I drowned my own coffee.
Day number 6, feelings. You know, I had gotten to a point where I was really good at what I did, especially in the emergency room, because I could walk in there and get right into the patient, what they needed. Nothing shocked me. But part of what made me so good in emergency rooms and in trauma is that I learned how to turn the emotions off. When you turn off the emotions because you're tired of hearing the bad ones and feeling the bad ones, you turn off the good ones too. So for these 6 individuals, it's important for them to understand that feelings, emotions, they're actually very powerful and great communicators. But when they've been tangled so tight to things in the past, tied to negative emotions, you have to help them become aware of that. So this day we spend a lot of time talking about feelings and emotions, how to validate them, how to trust them. But we also get ice bath day number 2. Isn't it interesting? The person that was most fearful and critical of it probably had the best outcome.
But I have PTSD from being cold. And then even growing up, poor, so being cold sucked ass. Being cold in Bosnia sucked ass. So I will take this 100-degree weather any day.
So they had had some experience of what a psychedelic event might feel like with the breath work. Then they had medicine day 1, and here we are on medicine day 2. A much stronger dose and more potent dose. Again, as we go into this, the concern is that we're stepping it up, way up. And this experience tonight should be enough to bring them all across the line.
It's so complex and so simple at the same time. Yes. It's just crazy. I just understand so much.
Day 7. So these 6 individuals are coming out the other side of the higher dose medicine. And a lot of times in a rest day after medicine's given, it can be called the gray day. For some people, it's the great day. Because for the first time, they feel free. We've used the analogy before that PTSD and depression and various other behavioral health disorders can feel like you're in a cell. No windows, no door, no way out. And this is them on the other side, still processing a lot of stuff that came to them the night before, but you start to see them wake up.
And it was uncomfortable. It wasn't something I ever wanted to really dive into with my own therapist, but I began, and Aboga was like, surprise. After the first night of seeing every video of me being shitty in my life, So it pretty much showed me all the trauma I caused everybody else, myself included. The next day felt horrible.
Day 8, I am. Nothing after that, just I am. The purpose of this is based on a concept and a series of books as well that talk about removing anything after the words I am. Because when we start labeling anything after that, we start limiting ourselves. I am an architect. I am an engineer. I am a doctor. Whatever it is, those things become limiting. But removing anything after I am really changes perspective, because for a lot of these individuals, they've gotten to such a dark spot in their life that part after I am is I am worthless. I am not loved. I am ineffective. I am a loser. You hear that from all of them time and time again, because it's gotten so dark where they are that that has become their definition. So this day, we remove it and keep it with I am.
People put stop signs up for themselves. They stop themselves from moving forward. They stop themselves from change. So it's like, it's better to live with brass ovaries so that no stop sign is safe, including in your own life. So
damn near reverted to the old me on a certain subject, and just they allowed me to be heard, and that was a beautiful thing, just to know I was heard. And my man Jason gave me a real soft verbal slap right upside the head as he was walking out of the room, and I'm like, I needed that, man, and I loved him for it.
So wrapping up day 8, some things I noticed in particular were that in their integration, in their learning about core values, about aspirations, about priorities, about letting them define themselves going forward, I noticed something really unique. Not only were they integrating more with the healers and the people that were there teaching, they were integrating with each other even more. Now, we saw that shortly after the initial connections and the icebreaker of using Powell for that one segment. But now you see them lifting each other up. You see them building each other up. You see a family starting to form. Day 9 is love yourself. There's a saying that you can't love anything else more than you love yourself. You ask any individual, especially from the service industry even, and we are taught to put priorities above ourselves. But we're quite often told that loving yourself is selfish and that you shouldn't. You shouldn't love yourself more than other things. But again, you can't love anything else more than you love yourself. Teaching somebody how to love themselves is super important, because you have to realize these 6, as well as most anybody that's dealing with depression, traumas, and everything else, they have a very low self-opinion of themselves. Some of them flat out hate themselves. I had an event one time during a breakup where I was getting out of the shower and a love song came on the radio. And I was very tempted just to change the station. But instead, I did something different. I sat there in that mirror. I did not break gaze with myself. And I sang that song to myself. It was awkward. It was weird. Then you start getting into it. I think the second song that came on that day was Stand By Me. And in that moment, you start realizing, through the thick and the thin, you are the one person that has been there for yourself time and time again. And you start realizing that bond is something else. Whether you want to imagine that as your soul singing to yourself or whatever, it's powerful. In fact, if I remember the story right, Celine Dion, Because You Love Me, was the next song on. I didn't make it through that one. I think I was in tears by the end of it, right? So here we were. We needed something as an exercise to pull these people through and teach them this. I will say there were some doubts by other people on the team as to whether this would be effective or not. I think something special is going to happen. About right here.
Okay.
And then walk out of yourself with this, okay?
I was barely holding pieces, breathing felt like second place. Every mirror showed a stranger, looking back without a face. Walking so through quiet damage, heartbeat heavy, dragging chains. Every step felt like I'm fading, everyone still felt like pain.
I played my favorite song from Spain. And yeah.
Stand up, let the whole world feel this is finally something real. From the dark, from the fight, I am learning to love my life.
It surprised everybody, and I cannot dance. I'm sure my employees are going to see it and laugh because I can't hold an 8-step. Just having fun.
It was just incredible. Like, it's just like if you were seeing the transformation of a butterfly, or just incredible to see her face and her dance and her happiness. And it was just an exercise in front of the mirror, nothing else. Very simple, but very profound. And how you have to love yourself to be able to love everybody else.
Yes, the exercise worked. Something much bigger happened that day. These individuals learned how to love themselves, and they learned it was okay. For that big step, everybody in their inner circle gains. The more they love themselves and prove themselves, the better everybody is. That's power. Wrapping up day 9. Tomorrow, we celebrate and say goodbyes. I'm excited. I'm excited to look at the transformation that these 6 have been through, but they're not the only ones. We all grew from that experience. As a doctor, these kind of happenings are very rare to see something that magnificent in your career. And I got to see 6 individuals over 10 days get their lives back, get their hero status restored. We got to see the cast and the crew that were there going through this with them in the stages of healing themselves without the medicine. We got to see them come together in this final party and the celebration of life. So la vida. Slick. The medicine gave them the reset. The program gave them the tools. Now, it's all up to them. Let's see. What color would be the sky today?
It'd be the same one as when I was a kid.
Partly cloudy with clearing skies on the way.
Today, that's pretty much it.
Today, blue.
Blue.
What did it look like at its worst? Ryan, you're the fucking artist.
Paint my own picture.
Damn straight, brother. You're the artist. So here we are, 30 days out. I have no idea the comments I'm going to get from these families. I formed a tight bond with them in the first tour going through the U.S. Now we get to see it through their eyes, what came home to them.
It's almost as if you did the previous before and after photos in reverse. So you see him lighter, and his smile and his eyes are brighter. Like he's come back, and it's not a mask anymore. Like you can tell he's genuinely smiling, or he's genuinely excited to be there, and it's nice. The light's back on.
I've seen him in situations since he's been back deal with it differently, using the coping mechanisms, coping teachings that he learned to get himself where he needed to be. And the other day I got into a bad situation, and I expressed it. And then he made the comment to me a few minutes later. He goes, "I really like how you coped with that." I'm kind of looked at him, he goes, you stepped back and you took a deep breath, and he said, "I could see what you were doing, you were breathing." And he said, "You came back and everything's cool." And I wasn't really paying attention to what I was doing. I was just doing what I normally do. I process and I deal with what I'm facing.
Right.
But it was something that he noticed, probably wouldn't have noticed before without the knowledge and awakening that he's had.
Did you get your buddy back?
He's coming.
Yeah. What still needs to happen?
Charlie, I don't know. I mean, he's trying.
Yeah.
He tries every day.
It's just a process. Like, it's not overnight. He's going to gradually come back the way he gradually...
It'd be great if you could just flip a switch, but it's a gradual process.
Every part of the plan that we've followed, from getting to Tulum, going through every day of what you guys put together through the program with us, the sound healing, the breath work, the medicine, and the teachings, all of that collectively has created every piece to a puzzle that I've needed to put together a better picture of just life, of anything that I needed that didn't make sense before, anything that doesn't make sense now, I can turn to what I've learned through this experience and immediately reframe and reprocess and move on. It's amazing.
When we finished up their treatment, obviously I was worried. Just like sending your kids out into the world, I was worried. But the comments that came from that second tour through these families.
After the first breathwork session, I mean, it was just a weight lifted.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wanted peace for him, and I think he found that. I know he found that.
Yes.
He found peace.
Right.
He was just able to let go of so much darkness, so much hatred. And I don't think that would have been possible without Iboga, without the people, without you and all the healers. So yeah, you know, when one person is struggling in turmoil, it affects the whole family. And yeah, I mean, I loved Keegan then, you know, and I love him now, and I'm just happy. I'm just so happy for him that he has this gift of peace, of being able to let go of the past, of healing.
There was one particular story we didn't catch on film. We spent some time going out to one of the national parks, and his youngest daughter, she said something that just grabbed my heart. She said, "Thanks for bringing my daddy home." To her, she was just happy I brought him home from Mexico, but I took it as a much deeper meaning.
I'd love to see that change. I guess just to see her at peace was pretty awesome. Her attitude, the way she acted, the way she talked was different.
When I saw her, she was exhausted. They were tired from traveling, but there was peace and joy.
My outlook for Courtney, I just want her to live her life. I want her to do what God's put her here for.
She's a lot more independent. We would text a lot, and most of the time it would be about studio things, you know, management and all of that. But now the discussion, sometimes there's no text, which then tells me she's fine, she's good. She's not thinking about work. She's not thinking about, she's enjoying life, and she's meeting new people. She's actually going out within the community of Dripping Springs to find more people. And the conversations aren't always about the studio, but just about other things. So it's less focus of the thing at hand and more of just the regular chit chat.
The comments from the 1 month follow-up were amazing. And again, we now have a second high end to this story. But it's interesting, especially with the plant medicine that was used in this case. Certain components even take up to 120 days to fully break down and get out of the body. This was really a test of not just the reset, but of utilization of the tools and, more importantly, the bond between each other to keep going. Ryan, shortly after filming the 1 month follow-up, lost his job in a field that he was in before and after the military. Hurt him financially, and they made it through. He had started in on a course on how to become a counselor, especially around plant-based medicine, to understand it. He was counseling firefighters in his spare time, just volunteering. And he himself had even applied for the fire department at his age to go through that and start a new career.
If you could find the end of the spectrum, go a little bit past it, and that's where I was, and then my goal is to find the other end and unlock the door and go a little bit past that, man. Yeah.
Lynn came back and decided that she needed to figure out what to do with her studio. It was suffering a little bit economically. Times had changed. COVID had changed a lot of things. But then I saw her re-engage. She went back to school to re-educate herself at that point in life. She had that much belief in herself. It was amazing.
Man, you feel so fucking good afterward.
Keegan went back to a miserable job in construction that kept him away from his family. And he did it only so long, until one day he walked away from it. Because at some point you have to let go of the parts that no longer serve you. And he did that with courage. He started writing music again, started performing again. He too went through a course on counseling and plant-based medicine so he could help other people through. There were times I even questioned some of his decisions internally, but his grit was even stronger than mine, and that's a key factor to success. Jason sustained an injury that most of us wouldn't even live through. And you may notice, but there's not a lot of footage of him before and after because he opted for privacy. And we're going to maintain that out of extreme respect for him as a person, because this wasn't about showboating or telling stories that people didn't want to tell. It was about the healing experience. We're very proud of him. Megan came home and left 2 things that were big identifiers of who she was before coming to us. She was in a relationship she labeled as toxic that she was able to walk away from. And she was in a job as a police officer in New Jersey that she walked away from as well to re-identify her life. She actually moved in with Courtney. They became roommates. It was amazing to watch those 2 together. But then Megan met someone and got something she had always wanted, her own family.
I think that the most valuable tool that I received was the connection to myself and the understanding that I don't have to do anything that I don't want to do.
Just a few months after the follow-up interviews, I got a call one day that Courtney had lost her hero, unexpectedly, her dad. This guy was awesome. I'd always sat with him a few times and got to know him really well, and major love for this guy. I remember shortly after that, a hurricane hit Tampa, where Courtney lived. Practically wiped out her home. She had some huge challenges come at her just back to back. A lot of people would find even just one of those things quite challenging, but to hit back to back shortly after just coming through the other side of healing, she was a testament to what this can do and what these programs can do and what the stages of healing can do, what the right tools to approach life can do. There was a scene in the follow-up interviews where I was just wrapping up interviewing Courtney's dad, and I realized just what this man had been through, being on the other side of the world while his daughter was suffering and struggling with helplessness in his heart. And I remember going through all that as he got teared up again. I saw on my wrist, I had a bracelet on that said, "Rock of our family." I sat there and thought to myself, man, if anybody deserves this bracelet, it's this man right here. I like my bracelets. They're my quick reminders of what life's all about. I know I gave you a mosquito bracelet, but I got you one that's a little bit different. This one, sir, says, "The rock of our family." Because you're the rock of yours.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just a small token of gratitude for what you've done. Thanks for being part of it, buddy.
Thank you. I enjoy you guys.
Same here, brother. Back to Courtney, you know, what I watched happen after those 2 major events hitting back to back, practically. I watched her go home to Montana while rebuilding her home in Tampa. I watched her there to support her mother and her sisters. I couldn't have been more proud and in awe to the day I saw that bracelet on her wrist. Rock of our family.
I don't know, you don't focus on all of the bad anymore. You really, like, okay, yeah, like this sucks and this is hard and it's devastating, but there's also beauty in it too. He taught me how to have grace and how to, you know, even if, you know, somebody doesn't share the same values or the same beliefs or walk the same path, any of that, like, you give them grace, you give them love. You know, somebody wrongs you, you don't, 2 wrongs don't make a right, was always something that he would say. He just lived by truth, and it's just love, and that's, you know, that's what he taught me. That's what
That's what the Bible teaches us, is that like of all of these things, the greatest is love. And I learned that from him, and he always showed love to everybody.
When you look at what these 6 individuals went through as we come into Austin, they went back into life. They not only engaged with their tools and survived, they thrived.
Yeah, I haven't seen Megan or Lynn since Tulum, since the retreat.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm super excited to see them. I miss them, and they're my sisters. I really needed this, you know, just to see everyone again and remind me of, you know, what it really was and what it was all about. And it's about that connection and just being together with crazy ass, like-minded people, knowing that you're not alone, you know.
I feel like that's the big thing, is like reminding ourselves that we're not alone. And like we were talking about that last night, was that like I love it that Ryan has before in the group chat been like, hey guys, like, you know, I've struggled here, and like, you know, this, that, and the other, and we all come together and like show support and like reminding each other that we're not alone. This last year has been a little rougher than we thought it was going to be, and having those open conversations with, like, we all understand each other, we all understand what we went through, and like we can talk openly about that and not feel like we're gonna get institutionalized.
On your way from Dallas now?
Yeah, we are. We're what, less than 100 miles away right now?
Yeah, I think Jesus just said ETA an hour and 13 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you guys are super far. That's a lot of driving. Congratulations. Yeah, what about you?
Here you go.
Yes, Charlie got me a
Radical healing for radical people, you know, and that's what it takes, you know. And for instance, like when you join the military and you go to boot camp, you get your head shaved and everything about you changes, right? And you're 100% committed to it because, well, you have to be if you want to be, you know, that, if you want to do that. And then you get out and, you know, maybe you don't click with society, or there's things that you want to change. Well, you have to 100% be as radical as you were in boot camp to change that, because that's what it takes, you know.
I was given my life back. So were they.
At the end, everybody there was in that treatment and everything to be better, to heal.
This is about learning to love yourself. The medicine was a vessel to help me find that. It was always there. But this is about you.
I'm glad I went, so overall, I mean, I got a Boga family out of it now. and got to try iboga. So I was happy about that.
Once you go through something like that, it was literally like a rebirth. It started a new stage of our life, and we did it together. And it was deeply vulnerable and profound, and something that, you know, you go from strangers to friends really quick when you see someone cry that much. So, and have these memories and these laughs that we had together, and breaking bread together, and doing, you know, everything in the presence of each other.
Do you feel like all that is gone? Yeah, it's all gone, but I still battle with it, you know? I still battle with it. And I don't know if that's just something that's going to last forever, but I know that it's not me. Like, and it'll never happen, you know? But yeah, it's something that I do struggle with still, yeah.
And I used to hate to hear that when people are like, it gets better, it gets better. It's like, always like, shut the fuck up, you have no idea. Like, I hated hearing that. But now being on the other side, it's like, don't give up. It's going to get better. I can't tell you when or how, but just look at the light that you have. Look at the beauty outside of all of the yuck. You know, always find that. Find where there is good things. You know, if you're struggling in certain places, look at where you're not struggling.
Regardless of what you've been told by people who have whatever letters behind their name, whatever relationship you have with those people, whatever relation you have to those people, if they've told you anything other than the simple fact that you're the only thing standing between you and being whole and starting a path of healing and becoming who it is, not only that you want to become, but who you're destined to become, is anything but yourself, they're wrong. Absolutely wrong. The only thing standing between you and where not only you want to be and your purpose, but where you deserve to be is you. So get out of your own way, man. It's that simple. That's it.
In the early days of mining, there was no technology and there were no sensors to detect if you hit a toxic gas pocket. Miners would take canaries down in a cage, and if the canaries died, you took action. You paid attention. You got the hell out of there. Take that and let's make an analogy to veterans or the canaries in the cave. That toxic gas is loss of community, loss of purpose. What's been happening to us for decades is starting to happen to our whole society. It's time to pay attention. It's time to take action. It's time to prioritize science over stigma, ignorance, and definitely profits. It's time we did more than just say thank you for your service to our veterans and first responders, the very people that put their lives on the line to keep us safe and protect us. They need action. And the fact is, we better find some solutions because the same problems are coming at all of us.
It's a long, long road just to find your way.
I used to come out here to the desert to get in connection with how I felt when I was in the darkest of my PTSD. It was a different picture than I look at now, but all the same. The isolation, the loneliness. It was like being in a cage without walls, all alone. I'd like to take a moment just to show you in perspective what the real losses of war are. There was a song infamized during that time called A Line in the Sand. Today I'm going to use those lines in the sand to demonstrate the true cost of war. Not in dollars, not in wins and losses, but in the lives and the casualties. So on September 11th, we lost 3,000 souls. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. 3,000 souls lost that day. We came together as a nation and we swore to never forget. And we waged war on terror. In that war on terror, we've lost nearly 7,000 U.S. military on the battlefield. 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. A lot of veterans have come home to broken promises, but this is one promise we can't break. Because this next march I make, for those of us veterans that have fallen to suicide since 2001. This is our new line in the sand. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, 11,000, 12,000, 13,000, 64,000, 65,000, 66,000, 67,000, 68,000, 69,000, 70,000, 71,000, 72,000, 73,000, 182,000, 183,000. To the nearly 200,000 that fell to suicide since 2001. To those veterans who brought the battlefield home with them, you will never be forgotten. It's time to bring them home. This time we've got to bring them all the way home.
We were forging foreign fires, boots deep in the sand. Came home to a silence this country don't understand. They built monuments and waved flags in July, but left too many warriors just asking why we don't need medals or parades down Main. We need purpose, we need peace, we need a place for the pain. So we're building it ourselves from the ashes and the dust, a nation of the fallen, the faithful and the just. Welcome home to squared away nation, where the battle cries a vow, not a decoration. A brotherhood reborn, a sisterhood revived. We ain't waiting on the cavalry, we're keeping each other alive. Marching on with a mission that don't end in formation. We traded rifles for redemption, boots for salvation. This is our land, this is our fight. Squared away nation coming back to life. Some gave limbs, some gave years, some gave all they had to give, and some gave up trying just to find a way to live.
We were promised open doors, soul of those they never tried to save. So welcome home to Squared Away Nation. Oh, where every scar's a badge of dedication. Oh, no more waiting on a system that forgot how to care. We're building up each other cause we know what's fair is rare. This ain't just a patch or a Facebook location. It's a fire in the heart, a sacred foundation. This is our call, our reclamation. This is Squared Away Nation. Now when the flag waves, we don't just stand. We rise for the fallen with boots in the sand. But this time it's our ground. This time it's our turn. And every voice speaks the lessons we've learned.
Yeah, welcome home to Squared Away Nation.
Where love looks like loyalty and dedication.
Where we lift the load, speak true to the pain,
And raise the ones who bore the strain.
Dr. Powell, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. Thank you for everything that you've done, everything you're doing. Also, thank you for your service.
Our service is just starting. Mission accomplished.
Yes, sir.
Then, Charlie.
Not just a home, but a second creation. Come walk with us.